Morning. I hope everybody is doing well this morning. The time for convening has arrived. The Senate will come to order. At this time, I will ask all unauthorized personnel to exit the chamber. I recognize the good senator from the 28th for a reading of the journal.
Good morning, Mr. President. I want to wish you a happy Ash Wednesday. Also want to wish you a happy Be Humble Day. And it's National Cook a Sweet Potato Day, National Margarita Day, National Wildlife Day. It's World Thinking Day. We all need to do a little thinking, and it's George Washington's birthday. Now, I want to introduce our pages for today and thank them for their great service they're going to provide for us today. We have Sanjana Tupili, probably butchered that one. Adalberto Cruz, Montserrat Rumbo, Melina Welch, Chad White, Douglas Port Henson, Ronald Luke Henson, Summer Para, Allie Faye Phillips, Nathaniel Long, Elijah Carter, and Allie Shanklin. Pages, thank you for your service today and appreciate all your work.
All right.
Mr. President, the journal has been read and found to be correct.
All right. Thank you, Senator. Is there objection to dispensing of reading of the journal? Chair hears none, and the journal is dispensed with. All senators who have bills and resolutions to introduce, please bring them to the Secretary's desk at this time. First reading, references of Senate bills and resolutions.
Senate Bill 217 by Senator Albers of the 56th and others, a bill to be entitled an act relating to registration and
Public
licensing.
safety.
Senate Bill 218 by Senators Rett of the 33rd and others, a bill to be entitled an act relating to identification cards for persons without driver's license, so as to
Public
provide
safety.
Senate Bill 219 by Senator Robertson of the 29th and others, a bill to be entitled an act relating to dangerous instrumentalities and practices so as to provide for an exemption of the
Judiciary.
definition. Senate Bill 210 by Senators Goodman of the 8th and others, a bill to be entitled an act relating to historic preservation so as to establish the Georgia Farmland Conservation Fund, Georgia Farmland
Finance.
Senate Bill 221 by Senator Burns of the 23rd and others, a bill to be entitled an act relating to primaries and elections generally so as to revise the language.
Ethics.
Senate Bill 222 by Senator Burns of the 23rd and others, a bill to be entitled an act relating to primaries and elections generally so as to provide that all costs and expenses relating to the election.
Ethics.
Senate Bill 223 by Senator Watson of the 1st and others, a bill to be entitled an act relating to general provisions regarding health so as to authorize reimbursement of patient-incurred expenses related to participation.
Health and Human Services.
Senate Bill 224 by Senator Harbin of the 16th and others, a bill to be entitled an act relating to life insurance so as to provide for certain protections for life insurance policyholders.
Insurance and Labor.
Senate Bill 225 by Senator Harbin of the 16th and others, a bill to be entitled an act, the Unclaimed Life Insurance Benefits Act, so as to require an insurer to conduct a
Insurance
quarterly.
and Labor.
Senate Bill 226 by Senator Harbin of the 16th and others, a bill to be entitled an act relating to primaries and elections generally so as to require unique.
Ethics.
Senate Bill 227 by Senators Kennedy of the 18th and Williams of the 25th, a bill to be entitled an act to create
State
a
and
board of
local
election.
government.
Senate Bill 228 by Senator Rahman of the 5th and others, a bill to be entitled an act relating to conservation and natural resources so as to establish the position of Director
Natural
of Outdoor.
Resources.
Senate Bill 229 by Senator Beach of the 21st, a bill to be entitled an act relating to elections and primaries generally so as to provide that any person employed or retained by a county election
Ethics.
superintendent. Senate Resolution 175 by Senator Brass of the 28th and others, a resolution creating.
Rules.
Senate Resolution 176 by Senator Brass of the 28th and others, a
Rules.
resolution. Senate Resolution 186 by Senator Halpern of the 39th and others, a resolution commending the work of the.
Rules.
Senate Resolution 189 by Senator Dolezal of the 27th, a resolution proposing.
Education and Youth.
That completes the order, Mr. President.
First reading, references of House bills.
House Bill 80 by Representative Leverett of the 123rd and Oliver of the 82nd, a bill to be entitled an act relating to.
Judiciary.
House Bill 186 by Representative Leverett of the 123rd and others, a bill to be entitled an act relating to appeal an error so as to revise an exception applicable to the filing of petitions
Judiciary.
for review. House Bill 221 by Representative Lumsden of the 12th and others, a bill to be entitled an act relating to maintenance
Insurance
and
and
fail.
Labor.
House Bill 242 by Representative Hitchens of the 161st and others, a bill to be entitled, an act relating to the Georgia Drivers Education Commission so as to provide for an additional penalty
Public
for
safety.
House Bill 243 by Representative Smith of the 70th and others, a bill to be entitled, an act relating to the number of judges of superior courts.
Judiciary.
House Bill 279 by Representative Gamble of the 15th and others, a bill to be entitled, an act relating to property
Insurance and
insurance.
labor.
House Bill 280 by Representative Gamble of the 15th and others, a bill to be entitled, an act relating to insurance generally so as to provide for
Insurance and
additional.
labor.
House Bill 294 by Representative Deloach of the 167th and others, a bill to be entitled, an act relating to procedure of rehabilitation so as to provide for the administration of contracts reinsuring.
Insurance and labor.
House Bill 315 by Representative Taylor of the 173rd and others, a bill to be entitled, an act relating to insurance
Insurance
generally.
and labor.
That completes the order, Mr. President.
Secretary will read reports of standing committees.
Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Agriculture and Consumer Affairs has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 177, do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Goodman of the 8th District Chairman. The Senate Committee on Agriculture and Consumer Affairs has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 34, do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Goodman of the 8th District Chairman. The Senate Committee on Children and Families has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 107, do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Kirkpatrick of the 32nd District Chairman. The Senate Committee on Education and Youth and has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 169, do pass by substitute. Senate Bill 170, do pass. Senate Bill 96, do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Dixon of the 45th District Chairman. Senate Committee on Regulated Industries and Utilities has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 99, do pass by committee substitute. Senate Bill 162, do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Cowser of the 46th District Chairman. The Senate Committee on Rules has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Resolution 123, do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Brass of the 28th District Chairman. The Senate Committee on SLOGO General has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 116, do pass. Senate Bill 145, do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator again of the 47th District Chairman. Senate Committee on State and Local Government Operations has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 108, do pass. Senate Bill 178, do pass. Respectively submitted, Senator again of the 47th District Chairman. Senate Committee on Veterans, Military Affairs, and Homeland Security has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 115, do pass by substitute. Senate Bill 97, do pass. Senate Bill 132, do pass. Senate Bill 144, do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Dugan of the 30th District Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Secretary will read bills and resolutions for the second time.
Senate Bill 57 by Senator Hickman of the 4th and others, Georgia Sports Betting Integrity Act, Regulation and Taxation of Sports Betting in the State, authorize and provide. Senate Bill 95 by Senator Robertson of the 29th and others, Solid Waste Trust Fund, specify the manner in which funds appropriated shall be used. Senate Bill 117 by Senator Williams of the 25th and others, State Employees Assurance Department, the assignment of certain group term life insurance benefits to pay for funeral services of a deceased individual who was a member, provide. Senate Bill 128 by Senator Albers of the 56th and others, Peace Officers Annuity and Benefit Fund, the total percentage of funds that can be invested in alternative investments raise the limit. Senate Bill 131 by Senator Tillery of the 19th and others, Permanent Guardianship Service by Publication provides. Senate Bill 134 by Senator Cowser of the 46th and others, Evidence that a child witness be deemed competent to testify without taking the oath provide. Senate Bill 135 by Senator Kirkpatrick of the 32nd and others, Paternity, Uniform Parentage Act of 2017, align evidentiary, medical, and genetic testing. Senate Bill 136 by Senator Dugan of the 30th and others, Impact Fees Required Revenue Source for a Development Project Involving Workforce Housing modify. Senate Bill 149 by Senator Albers of the 56th and others, Georgia Door-to-Door Sales Act enact. Senate Bill 183 by Senator Dolezal of the 27th and others, Ticket Brokers, exemption permitting certain resale restrictions removed. Senate Resolution 82 by Senator Summers of the 13th and others, Tax Commissioner waive certain delinquent ad valorem property taxes, procedures and conditions, provide. House Bill 18 by Representative Burns of the 159th and others, supplemental appropriation state fiscal year July 1st, 2022 to July 30th, 2023. Mr. President, that completes the order.
It is now time for the morning roll call. Secretary will, it's now time for morning roll call. Are there any motions to excuse? Senator from the 33rd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, y'all. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the following senators for business inside the Capitol: number 5 and number 12 and 41.
Without objection, Senator from the 5th and the 12th are excused. Senator from the 6th.
I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 14th.
Without objection, the senator from the 14th is excused. Senator from the 24th.
Mr. President, I'd like to excuse the senator from the 54th.
Without objection, the senator from the 54th is excused. Or is there any other senator wish to rise? Senator from the 30th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm trying to see it up there. I need to excuse the senator from the 52nd for business outside the chamber.
50 what, I'm sorry?
Second.
52nd.
There you go.
Without objection, senator from the 52nd is excused. Senator from the 22nd.
Unanimous consent, Mr. President, to excuse the senator from the 41st for business outside the Capitol.
Without objection, the senator from the 41st is excused. Any other motions to excuse? Secretary will call the roll of senators. Signify your presence by voting the yea switch. Secretary will unlock the machine. It is now time for our morning devotion. All senators, please take your seats and cease all audible conversation. I would ask that the doorkeepers secure the chamber at this time. I'd like to recognize our senator from the 39th to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance and introduce our pastor of the day. Senator?
Good morning. If we can stand and say the pledge together. First to the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the Georgia flag. I pledge allegiance to the Georgia flag and to the principles for which it stands, wisdom, justice, moderation, and courage. Good morning. So it is with great honor that I have the privilege to introduce today's chaplain of the day, Sam Collier of Story Church Atlanta. He has built a church congregation that is truly a reflection of Atlanta, representing a commitment to multiculturalism. Story Church is located right here, well, right in Midtown, in my district, and has brought many spirit-filled individuals together through the power of a post-Christian inspired movement rooted in Jesus Christ. He is the senior pastor of Story Church Atlanta, and he is also the founder of A Greater Story Ministries, which houses a nationally televised interview series and podcast called A Greater Story with Sam Collier, and a partnership with Baker Publishing, which recently released his first book, A Greater Story. He was previously in ministry at North Point Ministries, Ebenezer Baptist Church, New Birth Church, Orange Leaders, and most recently Hillsong Atlanta, where he is the former lead pastor. Pastor Collier is a gifted singer and worship leader with an incredible voice. He's a father, a husband, and is part of the next generation of faith-based leaders. You might have seen him or recognize his voice when you hear him from the annual King Day ecumenical services, and he's got a strong commitment to keeping the King legacy alive. So he is here today to encourage us as we head into the second half of the session. Please join me in welcoming Pastor Sam Collier.
Good morning. I realized I had not said the Pledge of Allegiance in such a long time. And so it was an honor to do that. Listen, if you're excited to be in here this morning, can you just make a little bit of noise? Come on, can we just make a little noise? Yeah, there it is. I love that. We've got some energy in the room. I definitely want to thank the Honorable Sonia Halpern for inviting me today, as well as the Lieutenant Governor and many of you. One of the things I would love to start with is this. No matter what your belief is or faith background, I truly do believe that each one of you has been hand-selected by God to be in the seat that you're sitting. And he hand-selected you to do a few things, but the greatest is lead. And through leadership, change happens like never before. The hope and the desire is that God would use our leadership to impact our city, that would then go on to impact this great state, and then this great nation. But if we are to lead well, there are a few things that I believe we must possess in order to do that. A few principles, a few things, a few morals, a few guidelines that if we were to subject ourselves to them and live out of them, we would lead like never before. I just want to highlight one this morning, and then I'm out of your way. And Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave us a foreshadow of this principle, and he said this, that the ultimate measure of a man or woman is not where he or she stands in times of comfort and convenience, but in times of challenge and controversy. Jesus, in the 26th chapter of Matthew, had a moment of challenge. Theologians argue all around the world, and they debate about what Jesus was actually doing in the Garden of Gethsemane, and in other words, how he was feeling. But the collective census is that Jesus was so distressed in the Garden of Gethsemane that he was sweating blood. And he was sweating blood because he was on the heels of getting ready to perform the greatest act that became the foundation of our faith. He was going to give his life for the world. He knew this would happen. And all of a sudden, in the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus is wrestling with God back and forth. Perhaps in the scripture, in this particular passage, it's one of the greatest times that we're able to see Jesus' humanity and divinity on display at the same time. The text says in the book of Matthew that Jesus went back and forth 3 times, pleading with the Father, if you can just take this cup away, I'd be so obliged. Then he says he came to himself and said, not my will, but your will be done. He went out and saw the disciples and said, please keep watch, for they were asleep. And then he went back a second time. If you could take this cup away, please take it. He went out a second time and then came back a third time and pleaded again, all while sweating blood. And then something unique happened. The text says that he said, "Look, the time has come. Here comes my betrayer." And Jesus in that moment puts his confidence on, he puts his fortitude on, he realizes the decision that he made, and he says, I must live this out, I must stay consistent if the world is to be changed. Here's my question for you. Who do you become, not when things are going your way, but when things are not going your way? Who do you become? Those morals and those values that you committed yourself to, do you stay consistent to that when things are hard? Or do you change? Are you an honest person all of the time? Integrity is not what you do when everyone is looking, but integrity is what you do when no one is looking. The question is, can you be consistent? Jesus was consistent even in his darkest day. He made an agreement with the Father. I must go and die on the cross, and it doesn't matter how hard it's going to get, I'm going to stay consistent. Do you stay consistent? Here's what I believe. If we could stay consistent as leaders with the commitments that we've made, not when things are going well, but when people are talking about us, when people are lying on us, when people are cutting corners, when people are manipulating, when people are playing politics, can we stay consistent? If we had leadership in our country that was consistent in the hard times, I believe this city, this state, this country will be better. Come on, let's pray. If you're comfortable, would you just open your hands and receive? God, we love you. We praise you. We thank you for every faith represented in the room. And we pray that we would be consistent. We pray that we would take an example from Jesus. And in the hard times, you be with us. For there's someone in the room now who's in a hard time, leading through a hard moment. Some would say that every day here can be difficult. I pray that they would stay consistent, that they would practice fortitude, that they would have a look, the time has come moment, and that they would leverage their leadership to make a difference like never before. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
If I could have everybody's attention real quick, please. If I could have everybody's attention, feel free to continue greeting the pastor. He did a wonderful job today. But it's always a pleasure to have our congressional leaders come down to the Capitol and see how the state legislature works and how we usually can get a few things done at the state legislature. And we've got some great leaders that represent our state, and we are privileged to have three of them here with us today. We might have a fourth one here, but I always like to give our congressional elected officials an opportunity to address this esteemed body. And I wanted to introduce first, in no particular order, other than the fact this is my actual neighbor right here, Congressman Mike Collins here. He and I live literally on the same street, about 200 yards from one another. And to show you how effective we are as a lieutenant governor and a congressman, we still don't have rural broadband yet. But we're working on it, though. We're working on it. At any rate, I've known Mike my entire life, and he just elected as a new congressman for the 10th district. Happy to have him here, and let's give him a warm welcome here today. Thank you.
Now y'all heard that, didn't you? He said his entire life. Now he's pointing out who's older. It's good to see my fellow representatives from other districts here in Georgia as well. It's also good to see Congressman Burns. Good to see you, sir. Mr. President, 30 years ago when my father was here in the state Senate, I never would have thought that I'd be in this chamber speaking to you as a U.S. Congressman. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor Jones, for allowing me this opportunity. It is an honor to stand with you. We are friends. We are neighbors. We're both from Jackson, Georgia, and have known each other his entire life. Thank you also, Senator Williams, for graciously welcoming me into your chamber. Thank you. I tell you what, y'all, it's great to be home. It's great to be out of that swamp up there. And I want to tell you something. Georgia is a model of fiscal responsibility and conservative small government. Every year the budget is balanced and issues in the state are solved because of the service and leadership from all of you here in this chamber. You listen to the people who send you to Atlanta, and you get the work done on time and done the right way. Meanwhile, it's obvious to anyone looking, the swamp in D.C. is in bad shape. Congress hadn't balanced the budget in 20 years. They have only successfully completed the appropriations process completely and on time 4 times in the last 50 years. They're running our country up there on the seat of their britches. I intend to fight Washington and get us back on the right track and use our great state of Georgia as the prototype on how legislation should be done. We are on the right track, though. We have new leadership in the House that will help meet our obligations, pass our budget and appropriations on time, and hopefully we can do it without having to pause the clock at 11:59 on sine die. But I'll tell you what, stay tuned and let's see how it turns out. Switching gears now, I want to thank and recognize this body for honoring a good man. This body recently honored Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, a native son of Georgia, by passing a resolution to commemorate his incredible contribution to our country with a statue under the Gold Dome. Justice Thomas exemplifies the American dream. He stands among giants as one of the strongest defenders of our freedom. Thank you, Senator Anna Vitarte, Senator Watson, on your leadership and honoring him in such a fitting way. I know you all got work to do, so I'm gonna let you get back to it. But I want you to know I look forward to working with all of you as we continue to fight for Georgians and Georgians' value here up in D.C. I truly mean this. Please don't hesitate to contact me. Reach out. If I can help our state or help our people we serve in any way. Thank you again for your time. God bless you. God bless the great state of Georgia. And God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Like I said, we thank you, Congressman Collins. We've got several congressional leaders here today, and I want to introduce a young lady in her second term now as a Congress lady from Northwest Georgia, and she has made a big splash into the DC network, and she is now serving on some major committees in the new congressional leadership, and that will serve the state well and serve her district well. Just like to introduce, let's give a warm welcome to Congress Lady Green here.
Thank you so much, everyone. And I just want to thank you for your service to our state. I'll speak to you for a few minutes as a fellow Georgian, if that's okay. While we are working hard on the federal level in Washington, D.C., I'm going to say something that I think you all know is true, and that is that Washington is broken. And it's very difficult for us to accomplish many things. And sadly, that's hurting our country. But you are in unique positions here in Georgia's Senate to make a real difference for Georgians, for families, for businesses, for workers, and for people that visit here. And so I'm going to talk to you for just a minute. I was born and raised here in Georgia. I've lived pretty much all over the state. But the best thing that I've ever done is I've raised 3 kids here in Georgia. And so I'm going to put my mom hat on for a few minutes and talk to you about our children, because that's something that I know that we can all share together. There is a great delusion that has been sent on our country, and it is attacking our children. And that is the lie that children can change their gender. You know, God spoke the truth, and God created all of us, and he created us man and woman. In his image, he created us, and that is the truth, and that's who we are. But today, children are being taught a lie that they can change their gender, and this is a very big issue. It's a multi-billion-dollar medical industry that's growing all over the country, but it is also a major attack happening to our youth on social media. This is where they are told these lies. And there are children that are not even old enough to vote, not old enough to graduate high school, not old enough and don't have driver's license, aren't old enough to join the military, aren't old enough to get a tattoo, aren't old enough to buy nicotine or alcohol, that are taking dangerous medications, puberty blockers. They are undergoing dangerous surgeries, permanent life-altering surgeries, such as mastectomies for teenage girls, castration for teenage boys, and it is a very serious issue. They are making these permanent decisions before they're ever old enough to do anything that adults do every single day, and many of them regret it by the time they become adults. My ask for you is, let's protect our kids here in Georgia. This isn't about adult choices, what people choose to do with their bodies and sexually as adults, but it's about what children need. They need time to grow up. So my ask to you is, please let kids be kids, and let Georgia be a state where we protect children from this medical industry and from this lie that they can change their gender. They just need to grow up. Secondly, I ask you for our children's education here in Georgia, please remember that technical education is such an important education. And that's something that we need to continue to pursue here in Georgia, because I have to tell you, as an owner of a construction company, jobs like electricians, plumbers, construction workers, truck drivers, and so much more are important jobs. And so I ask that you consider these things when you're passing legislation with education. Thirdly, I'll ask one more thing. One of the greatest gifts and freedoms that we have in this country is being a business owner, employing people, and having the freedom to be able to do that. And I ask that you continue to keep Georgia a great state for people to be able to open businesses, run their businesses, and grow our economy. Lastly, I'd like to thank all of you for the jobs that you do. You have very important jobs, and as a congresswoman, but also as a Georgia resident and citizen, I really greatly appreciate what you're doing. Thank you so much for letting me visit today, and I thank you, our Lieutenant Governor Jones, for letting me speak a few minutes.
Good job, good job, good job. Thank you, Congress Lady, and last but certainly not least is our longest-serving congressional member, a gentleman who has represented Southwest Georgia well. He's actually served in this body before he's been in. Congressman Bishop just told me he's been in Congress for 31 years. That's right, 31 years. That's pretty impressive. But before that, he served 2 years in this body, and then he served 14 years in the House of Representatives over there. So you got good training here, and it prepared you for D.C., I guess, right, Congressman? So it's always nice to have Congressman Bishop here. He comes down about once a year and addresses this body. And obviously, having been a former member, we're always welcome and happy to have him. And let's give a warm welcome for Congressman Sanford Bishop. Mm-hmm. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. This truly is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. I am so glad to be back here and to be home. It doesn't seem like too many years ago since I was sitting right there where Senator Harbison is sitting now. I got my training here in this General Assembly, 14 years in the State House and my last 2 here in the State Senate. I wouldn't give anything for that because it certainly prepared me and gave me the grounding that I needed to be able to go to Washington and use the political process to try to improve the people's lives in our state through jobs and a stronger economy, better education, safe communities, a clean environment, affordable health care, and a strong national defense. We represent the same folks. You and I on the national level, you on the state level, and our partners on the local level. So we have an obligation to work for and in their behalf, and I do that, and you do that, and we have to do that working together as a team, not Democrats, not Republicans, but as Georgians and as Americans. And so I do my dead level best to use the process to make life better for the people that we jointly represent. So I'm always glad to come back to my roots, where I really learned the legislative process. I have such fond memories of my service in this body and across the hall in the House. So if there's anything that we can do to be of help, as the Dean of the Georgia Legislative Delegation, I have the responsibility of making sure that we hear from folks all over Georgia so that when you come to Washington and you have needs from Washington, that we are there to facilitate whatever it is that needs to be done for our mutual constituents. With me today is my Chief of Staff, Mr. Kenneth Cutts, our District Director, Mr. Michael Bryant. As you know, we represent Middle and Southwest Georgia, 30 counties. We have offices in Macon, Columbus, and Albany, but we are at your service anytime. Let me just leave you with my favorite poem, and I probably share it with you every time I come because it means so much to me, and I'm sure that the words are important to you. It's called A Bag of Tools, and it goes like this. Isn't it strange how princes and kings and clowns that caper in sawdust rings like me and you, each of us is given a bag of tools, a shapeless mass, and a set of rules. And each must make ere life is flown a stumbling block or a stepping stone. I thank you as members of the Georgia legislature of this great body for not being stumbling blocks, but for being stepping stones for a higher and a better quality of life for all Georgians. Thank you, and God bless you.
Good job, Dean. Good job. Good job. Appreciate you being here. Wait a minute. Hey. It's always a pleasure to have our senators recognize our Doctor of the Day today, and I'd like to call on the senator from the 12th to introduce our Doctor of the Day.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. Our Doctor of the Day is Dr. Kus Desai from Albany, Georgia. Dr. Desai is a board-certified internal medicine physician practicing hospital-based medicine at Phoebe Putney Hospital in Albany, Georgia. He also serves as the Assistant Dean for the Medical College of Georgia's Southwest Campus, which is also located in Albany, Georgia. He's a 2016 graduate of MCG's Southwest Campus and returned to the region to direct MCG's clinical campus and train the next generation of physicians. Additionally, Dr. Desai has expertise in disease prevention and has obtained numerous grants from the FCC, USDA, and CDC to reduce health disparities in rural Georgia. He co-founded a statewide program which successfully increased colon cancer screening rates at underserved clinics. He utilized his experience to collaborate with partners to form the CDC-funded Georgia Colorectal Cancer Control Program, in which he serves as a regional medical director. Some of his recent recognitions include Albany Chamber of Commerce 2021 Under 40 Young Professional of the Year, 2021 Phoebe Inpatient Attendant of the Year, and Medical College of Georgia's 2020 Young Alumnus of the Year. I am extremely proud to have this young physician that has chosen to come back to practice in rural Georgia. Dr. Desai, would you please give us a word this morning? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Sims. Just want to thank all the members of the Senate for your support for rural Georgia and for physicians in rural Georgia. Also want to thank y'all for your support for the Medical College of Georgia and our initiatives to increase primary care throughout the state of Georgia, especially in underserved areas. So thank you guys. Hopefully y'all don't need me today, but if you do, I'll be downstairs. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. I'd like to recognize a couple of our former members on the floor right now. Senator Karenchak back there in the back. Good to see you, Senator. As I think Senator from the 28th, your favorite senator over there from Coweta County, I think he would always ask you, are you a federal prosecutor, you know, in your off season? So it's great to have you here, Senator, and always good to see you and glad to have you back. And we've got another former member here. You know, she's a current House member here, representative now. So how are you doing, Representative? Yeah. So good to have y'all. Special We have some special guests with us here today, and you have a resolution, okay. And always good to have people, particularly people we know and worked around the Capitol here. Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Resolution 114 by Senator Davenport of the 44th and others. A resolution recognizing and commending Charlie Fleming on his outstanding service and for other purposes. Whereas Charlie Fleming has long been recognized by the citizens of this state for the vital role that he has played in leadership and his deep personal commitment to the welfare of the citizens of Georgia. And whereas he has long been respected by his peers and colleagues as a voice for workers throughout the state of Georgia who has dedicated innumerable hours of his time and energy toward establishing connections in the Atlanta community and supporting organizations focused on the well-being of workers. And whereas it is abundantly fitting and proper that the outstanding accomplishments of this remarkable and distinguished Georgian be appropriately recognized. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body recognize and commend Charlie Fleming for his efficient, effective, unselfish, and dedicated service to the American Federation of Labor and Congress of Industrial Organizations. Congratulate him upon the grand occasion of his retirement and extend the most sincere best wishes for continued health and happiness. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Is there objection to the adoption of resolution? Chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. I'd like to call on the senator from the 44th to introduce our special guest, and always glad to have friends here at the Capitol. And Charlie has had a remarkable career and has always been a very mindful and helpful person on his issues that he was always supporting in the hallways. So glad to have him here. And Senator, I'd like to introduce him.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues and our guests, I am delighted to present to you today Mr. Charlie Fleming to the Senate. I'm joined here today with my colleagues, the senator from the 36th, the 38th, the 55th, the 41st, and others, to tell him how much we appreciate his service. He is retiring after 50 years of service. Charlie Fleming has long been recognized by the citizens of this state for the vital role that he has played in leadership and his deep personal commitment to the welfare of the citizens of Georgia. He has diligently devoted innumerable hours of his time, talents, and energy toward the betterment of his community and state, as evidenced dramatically by his more than 11 years of superlative service as president of the American Federation of Labor and Congress of Industrial Organization. He has long been respected by his peers and colleagues as a voice for workers throughout the state of Georgia, who has demonstrated innumerable hours of his time and energy toward establishing connections in the Atlanta community and supporting organizations focused on the well-being of workers. Charlie Fleming's significant organizational and leadership talents, remarkable patience and diplomacy, keen sense of vision, and sensitivity to the needs of the citizens of this state have earned him the respect and admiration of his colleagues and associates. He has served with honor and distinction as president of the AFL-CIO, and his vision and unyielding commitment to his fellow citizens will be sorely missed upon the occasion of his retirement. And I think all of you in this body know Charlie Fleming and respect him and appreciate him. So we're here today to say happy retirement to Mr. Charlie Fleming. May your many years be filled with good health and happiness, peace and joy. Congratulations and happy retirement. Yes, please come and say something.
Well, thank you, Senator, and thank you, everyone, for those kind words. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve the over 240,000 union members in this state for the last 2 decades. Really proud of the work that we've accomplished. I know this is such a great state, and we're strive to be the #1 state for business. Well, I would ask you to continue to think about the people that make this state go every day, and keep those folks in your thoughts and in your bills. We need to make this the best place for workers also. But again, thank you very much, Lieutenant Governor, and all the folks that made this possible. Thank you.
All right, good job, good job, Charlie. Good job, man. Good job. We have a few more special guests here today, and I want to recognize them. I'll let them join us up on the podium here. But Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Resolution 41 by Senator Hickman of the 4th and others, a resolution recognizing and commending Bryce Leatherwood on being the winner of the 22nd season of The Voice television series and for other purposes. Whereas Bryce Leatherwood is a native of Woodstock, Georgia, and a May 2022 graduate of Georgia Southern University. And whereas Bryce developed his love for country music and outstanding work ethic during the summers he spent on his grandfather's farm just outside of Macon, Georgia. And whereas Bryce, through his musical talent and Southern values, has inspired Georgians all across the state and brought great honor and credit to his family, community, and the state of Georgia, and it is only fitting that this body should recognize such achievement. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body recognize and commend Bryce Leatherwood on winning the 22nd season of The Voice television series and convey to him their heartiest congratulations and best wishes in his future pursuits. Mr. President, that completes the order.
All right. Thank you, Secretary. I'd like to call on the senator from the 4th. There seems to be a lot of talent that comes out of that area of Georgia there, Senator. So it's good to have another very talented individual here today, and I'm glad we're able to honor them. So at this time, I'd like to welcome the senator from the 4th for our special guest.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's always an honor to be here. And first of all, I would like to recognize the great senator from the 24th, Lee Anderson, who actually headed up, called me one night and he said, Billy, did you know that on Voice tonight is a guy from Statesboro, Georgia, and also Georgia Southern University? I said, no, I didn't know that, but we turned it on, and of course we followed him. We followed Bryce from then on, and of course Joy and I voted for him a bunch of times too. But up here also today with him are his parents, Cliff and Hope Leatherwood. Sorry about that. Also up here is Senator Beach from the 21st, Senator Kirkpatrick from the 32nd, and Senator Albers from the 56th, who represent Cherokee County. In December of 22, Bryce won The Voice on NBC. What a great name for a country music singer, they said, Leatherwood. With him today, of course, are his parents, Cherokee County native, started singing in the 7th grade at Dean Russ Middle School in Canton, and graduated from Sequoia High School, and actually he told us earlier today that he was on a wrestling team with Sequoia. Graduated May 2022 from Georgia Southern University in Statesboro with a business degree. 22 years old. During the blind audition, and you know that's when everybody's turning their back to the singers, he wowed the judges by turning 3 chairs and ended up on Blake Shelton's team. One of his last 2 songs, and the senator from the 8th, I saw him here earlier, would really like this. One of the last 2 songs that Bryce sang that night was Trouble, which was originally recorded by Elvis. We're very fortunate. Georgia Southern seems like it's becoming a hotbed of young country music stars with Luke Bryan, Cole Swindell, and now Bryce Leatherwood. Bryce, we got this resolution here, and it's signed by the Lieutenant Governor, signed by the President Pro Tem, John Kennedy, signed by myself, and Secretary of the Senate, David Cook, we'd like to give you. Would you mind saying a few words to everybody?
Well, to everyone in Georgia and to the people of Georgia, man, thank you all so much for constantly voting and putting me where I need to be to succeed. And, you know, all the finale artists were asked to write a letter to either their family or something important to dedicate their experiences on The Voice to, and I chose to write mine to Georgia because this great state has meant the most to me as an artist. The people of it, the people who come to shows and support me, it's been a blessing. And God bless Georgia. Georgia's always on my mind, and God bless America. Thank y'all.
have another special guest here today, and the secretary will read the caption on this. You do not have a resolution? I'd like to call on the senator from the 42nd to introduce our special guest.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a special presentation for Black History Month. Today, as part of my Black History Month presentation, I have the honor of introducing all of you to Dee Smith with the DeKalb Remembrance Project. I'm going to talk more about Dee in a moment. But first, I want to honor all African American Georgians who have contributed in so many ways to our great state, in spite of the decades of discriminatory policies and laws that they were subjected to. History has always mattered, and it matters now more than ever. Not just because we study it in school, but because it teaches and instructs us. We must pay attention to the lessons of our past. As we celebrate Black History Month, let us dedicate ourselves to continuing to learn from history as it evolves with newly uncovered events, facts, and perspectives, and to teach that history based on truth. I am so honored to have Dee Smith here today. A life member of the NAACP, Dee founded and chairs the DeKalb Remembrance Project, a coalition of more than 50 DeKalb citizens and community, political, civic, and religious groups brought together for the sole purpose of erecting memorials to the past victims of lynchings in DeKalb County. The group has installed 3 plaques in DeKalb to commemorate lynching victims in DeKalb County. The coalition consists of Democrats, Republicans, and independents, many religions, races, and different education levels. This is very meaningful to me. One of those lynchings occurred just a block from where I live. Porter Turner was killed in August 1945 by KKK members while he was just doing his job as a driver. That was one of 3 jobs he worked to support his family. Today we might call this an act of domestic terrorism, but in August 1945, it didn't make the news at all, and it didn't enter any history books. However, the impact of Mr. Turner's lynching was felt deeply among his family, who were robbed of his love and financial support, and among the Black community who feared befalling the same violent end, and who were justifiably angered at this injustice. Justice for Mr. Porter Turner's lynching was never served. So Dee Smith here uncovered his history, said his name, brought together a coalition to honor a man who was lynched and murdered and taken away from his family, a man whose name hadn't been spoken in the public. No arrests, no stories in the newspaper for Mr. Porter Turner. I want to thank Dee for this work in making sure that we don't forget this and other horrific tragedies. History is made by well-known people, but also by everyday folk. Dee uncovered the facts, many of which had been long forgotten, and brought them to light. She's made sure that all of us going forward can have the opportunity to learn about the lynchings that took place in DeKalb County and the lynching of Mr. Porter Turner by erecting a beautiful plaque, a historical marker at the corner of Ponce de Leon and Oakdale Roads. If you're on Ponce heading toward Decatur, when you see Oakdale Road, just look in the park. It'll be right there to your left. You'll see it. You can't miss it. Historical marker about this lynching put up by the Remembrance Project. The work that Dee's been doing highlights the importance of the freedom to learn and to teach, which is really significant today as communities grapple with divergent and, at times, politicized views of literature, history, academics, and free speech. We need to focus on making sure that there is discussion, debate, and curiosity and learning among our youth. and we should always respect and teach true history, even when it's uncomfortable. One thing is certain, limiting access to books is really just an attempt to do so, or to information is not going to stop people from learning history or making it every day. This Black History Month, let's recognize the importance of Black history in the U.S., in the state of Georgia, in our local communities, and commit to not erasing history, the individuals who lived, who died, or who bore witness. Let's work to continue our learning, knowing that forgotten history is recoverable, has valuable lessons for us today. It awaits discovery. And that, right in my neighborhood, is in large part recently due to the great work of heroes like Dee Smith. Dee, thank you for what you've done. Please come bring us greetings.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much. But I have to say that the work on the Remembrance Project was accomplished by a coalition. One person could not do it all, but with the help of God, this project was completed by some marvelous, marvelous people. The senator mentioned the type of coalition we had, and it just shows what can be accomplished when people of different political persuasions come together for the common good. So thank you on behalf of the Remembrance Project, the correct name, NAACP, DeKalb Remembrance Project. We thank you.
Okay. And then this is all right, the Senate will come back to order. That concludes our special presentations. Are there any unanimous consents? Hearing none, we will move on to points of personal privilege. Does any senator wish to rise on a point of personal privilege? What we got? 33rd. Okay. Everybody. The chair recognizes a senator from the 33rd.
Thank you, Mr. President, my fellow senators, colleagues, friends, and y'all. Today, I'm talking in line with Black History Month about the senator from the 38th, Horacina Tate. She is a Democrat who was first elected to the Georgia Senate from the 38th District and representing portions of Cobb and Fulton County. Born in Griffin, Georgia, and raised in Atlanta, the senator from the 38th attended school in the Atlanta public school system and graduated from Frederick Douglass High School. She obtained a Bachelor of Science degree in education from the University of Georgia, and after graduating, the senator began her professional career as an employee in the Georgia Department of Labor and was once a volunteer in the office of the former governor and President Jimmy Carter. She also spent several years as an employee and trainer with United Airlines and Apollo Travel Services. To further her formal education, Dr. Tate enrolled at Atlanta University and received a master's degree in educational administration. She later received a doctorate degree in educational administration from Clark Atlanta University. The senator from the 38th is very active in community affairs. She has been the computer literacy advisor for the Butler Street, the famous Butler Street YMCA, a volunteer software instructor for local churches, a delegate representing Clark Atlanta University at the International Community Education Conference in Trinidad, and a speaker for several Metro Atlanta Public School functions. She served as the vice president of the Rosalie Wright Communities Council, and the senator from the 38th currently serves on the Atlanta-Fulton County Senate delegation. She has been a very active member of the Cascade United Methodist Church for many years. She is also a member of the United Methodist Women Group and Alpha Kappa Alpha National Sorority, where she previously held leadership role as corresponding secretary for one of the sorority chapters. Her father is the famous civil rights leader and former member of the Georgia Senate, Horace Tate. As you ride up and down I-75, part of I-75 Highway North is named in his honor. The senator from the 38th is a matriarch of the Senate, born and nurtured in the Atlanta Civil Rights Movement from head to toe. Spend some time with her and learn from her wisdom and experience. The senator from the 38th. Mr. President, I yield the well. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The chair now recognizes the senator from the 45th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today because we are fortunate to have 17 of the 2022 Governor's Honors Program alumni with us in the gallery this morning. This program has served over 37,000 Georgian high school juniors and seniors over the past 60 years. The Georgia General Assembly has several alumni as legislators, including Jen Jordan and our Agriculture Commissioner, Tyler Harper. Commissioner Harper is the first GHP alum to become a statewide officer. Each year, 650 to 700 of Georgia's most intelligent and talented high school rising juniors and seniors are selected through a very competitive process to attend a 4-week rigorous and intensive educational experience on a college campus. The rigorous experience during this program is not typically experienced in a high school setting. The long-lasting friendships continue to thrive over many decades. We're excited to have these students with us this morning to celebrate the Governor's Honors Program Day at the Capitol and to recognize 60 years of magic for the tens of thousands of students. I would like to have those students, if they would, please rise and be recognized today. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Thank you, Senator. The chair now recognizes the senator from the 34th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. On yesterday, we took a moment to talk about Georgia's. Georgia's president. We are talking about President Jimmy Carter, and we took some time in remembrance, and I shared a story on yesterday. But today I rise to make sure we remember First Lady. We were down in his hometown, Plains, Georgia, and First Lady was such a grandmother to my grandkids. She was just the woman that he had by his side throughout all of this. So I am rising today to ask for, in addition to President Jimmy Carter, but Rosalind Carter, let's just take a moment just to be silent and recognize what they are going through in remembrance of how great Georgia is, because we've had leaders to go on the national level and represent us well. I'll ask for a moment now.
The senator has asked for a moment of silence. If we would, everyone, let's stand for a moment, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll yield the well.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes now the senator from the 28th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, today I rise on two occasions. One, today is State Restaurant Day at the Capitol, and so our Georgia restaurant industry represents over 21,916 food and drink establishments and generates more than almost $25 billion annually, providing over 500,000 jobs statewide. And our Georgia Restaurant Association Foundation works with state and local agencies to promote food safety and job skills through the Serve Safe and ProStart educational programs, as well as the industry mentoring of young professionals that will be new to the workforce. And so just want to commend our Restaurant Association and all they do for our state and all the economic development that they provide. Also, today is Self-Direction Day. And so for those of you that don't know, self-direction is an optional model of home and community-based services delivery that enables individuals of all ages with all types of disabilities to maintain their independence at home in their local community. Self-direction gives individuals the freedom of choice and self-determination about the services, allowing them to live independently in their own homes and communities. And the model is available in Georgia in 5 different home and community-based waiver programs, which provide the elderly and disabled with necessary medical care and services. So I want to thank everyone here for Self-Direction Day. I know we've got some of them up in the gallery, so thank you. And then also just want to thank our State Restaurant Association. Maybe some of them are out there in the halls, so they'll be here for Taste of Georgia's down at the Freight Depot later today. So thank you all for being here, and I yield the well.
Thank you, Senator. The chair now recognizes the senator from the 9th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to take a moment to recognize some of our guests that are up in the gallery. They might be leaving or they're outside, but wanted to recognize and welcome the Gwinnett County NAACP. The mission of the National Association of Advancement of Colored People is to ensure political, educational, social, and economic equality of rights of all persons and to eliminate race-based discrimination. They're here today with State President Griggs
and Gwinnett President Penny Poole, and also with our wonderful and amazing students from South Gwinnett High School and Shiloh High School. So let's welcome them all. I think they've all left, but let's give them a round and recognize that they are here today. I think they all left, though. Thank you. Mr. President, I yield the well.
Thank you, Senator. I'd like to take a moment to recognize and thank the legislative aides in the Pro Tem's office for this session. Mr. Oswald Hernandez. Oswald, raise your hand. And also we've got Cole Rogers, better known as Franklin. And these guys have done a fantastic job in our office. And it's a special day because Oswald has a birthday today. So Cole is a sophomore. Yeah, let's give him a round of applause for that. Cole is a sophomore and a political science major attending the University of North Georgia, and Oswald is a senior political science major attending the University of Georgia. Go Dogs. It's been a joy and a pleasure to have them in our office. They're the smiling faces that greet you when you come in. They've just been a fantastic addition to the team for the Pro Tem's office this year, and so we thank you guys very much for what y'all have done. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on. We've got, Chair recognizes the senator from the 16th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. On your desk this morning is a flyer from Mothers Against Gambling. Two things I would say to you. Remember this, when mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. And if you don't know where you stand on the issue, ask your mama. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Senator. The chair now recognizes the senator from the 29th.
Colleagues, I rise today to remember a good friend and a true part of the solution to what ails our communities today. I'm here to speak about Robert Bob Yarborough. For 30 years, Bob Yarborough taught at Shaw High School in Columbus, Georgia. He taught construction science, and he did an incredible job. Many times throughout his career, he was invited to move into the private sector where he would have made a whole lot more money than he was making in the public school system. But Bob chose not to. He chose to stay in the public school system and be the disciple that we hope all of our teachers would hope to be. For 30 years, Bob taught young men how to be young men and young women how to be young women, while at the same time teaching them skills that allowed them to move on into careers, whether they went to tech school, whether they went to a four-year college, but all of them eventually came out and became successful parts of the community, very successful parts of the community for many who had skills that they learned from Mr. Yarborough at Shaw High School. He was the teacher that everybody wanted to be in his class. And this past week, while at home on the long weekend, I had the honor of attending the funeral for Bob Yarborough. And while sitting there, I listened to student after student after student stand up and talk about the incredible impact that Bob Yarborough, their teacher, had on them. That he taught them not only how to drive a nail, not only how to read a ruler, and not only how to build houses and other things, but he also taught them how to be civil with each other, how to be kind to each other, how to be compassionate with each other. And what Bob Yarborough did for 30 years on a public teacher's salary is he made the state of Georgia better. So please join me in a moment of silence for my uncle, Bob Yarborough.
The senator has asked for a moment of silence. Let's please honor that request.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The chair recognizes the senator from the 43rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, you will see on your desk the 2023 calendar sponsored by LifeLink. This calendar is dedicated to those individuals who have given the gift of life and to the professionals who make the donation, transplantation, a reality. So for those who have received kidney transplants, heart transplants. These are the faces of those beautiful people who have donated. I had an uncle when I was 12 years old, had a heart transplant. The doctors only gave him 3 years to live. He actually lived another 18 years. So this is the gift of life, and we celebrate with this calendar. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the will.
Thank you. The senators yielded the well. All right, let's going to move on now to the now for the adoption of privileged resolutions. You have a consent calendar of privileged resolutions before you. Does any senator wish to remove a resolution from the consent calendar? Hearing none. Is there objection to the adoption of the resolutions on the consent calendar? The chair hears none, and the resolutions on the consent calendar are adopted. Are there any motions to withdraw or commit? All right, let's move on to the local consent calendar. You have a, pardon me? Senator, no? All right, you have a consent calendar of local bills before you. Mr. Secretary, are there any objections filed to any bill on the local consent calendar?
Mr. President, there are no objections filed.
Very good. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the Committee on State and Local Governmental Operations, which is favorable to the passage of the bills on the local consent calendar? The chair hears none, and the report on the committee is agreed to. The question is on passage of the bills on the local consent calendar. All those in favor will vote yea. All opposed, nay. The Secretary will now unlock the machine. On the passage of the bills of the local consent calendar, the yeas are 53, the nays are 0, and the bills having received the requisite constitutional majority are therefore passed. Okay. We don't need the third reading. All right, we're going to move on to the rules calendar. Mr. Secretary, please read the bill.
House Bill 52 by Representative Thomas of the 21st and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 32 of the OCGA relating to highways, bridges, and ferries so as to amend notice provisions relative to meetings for the election of board members, to provide for negotiations and requests for proposals relative to public-private partnerships, to amend Code Section 45-16-23 of the OCGA relating to delegation of power by coroner or county medical examiner and qualifications of those authorized to perform examinations. The Committee of the Senate on Transportation recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Dolezal of the 27th District Chairman. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Thank you. The chair now recognizes the senator from the 27th to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I bring you a GDOT department bill this morning that we actually passed out of this chamber last year. It ran into an administrative snafu in the House as all of the paperwork was not paper clipped together. So this bill died a glorious death due to a lack of paper clip, and it's before you again this morning. I will walk you through quickly what it does. There are 6 sections to this bill. Section 1 makes email instead of physical email the required notification method from alleged counsel. to legislators for a call to a board election for GDOT. Section 2 replaces requests for proposals with requests for proposal revisions as one of the authorized negotiation activities. Section 3 allows GDOT to start the CMCG bid process and revert to the low bid process, both of which are currently approved under law, if the cost estimator comes back with a recommendation that would recommend that. Section 4 makes changes in modular or sectional housing unit transportation to allow a length of 84 feet, which is an increase from 80 feet. Section 5 grants further ability of an appropriate county medical examiner to delegate their authority to qualified medical personnel in the field at the site of an accident. And lastly, Section 6 ensures that no one can abuse the Open Records Act to get personal information about a driver's location, travel history through the state, either directly or indirectly through a data vendor. Well, Mr. President, that concludes my commentary on this bill. Happy to answer any questions, or I will yield the well.
Hillary's asked to speak. Chair recognizes the senator from the 19th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator, do you yield?
I do.
Senator, thank you for the cleanup language. I see where we've accomplished a lot in the different sections of this bill that I think are important. Thank you for bringing it. I want to bring your attention, though, to Section 3 and just ask you a question, if you don't mind. On lines 60 through 62, it looks like state law used to require, or put a cap rather, on only 5% of the department's capital budget could be used for these special projects in Section 3. Is that how you read that section?
That's correct.
The lines later on in 61 and 62, they take that 5% cap off if the board waives that requirement by majority vote. Am I reading that correctly?
You are reading that correctly, Senator.
Does the senator further yield?
I do.
The board, which board is that? Do you know?
It's the GDOT board.
Okay. And does the senator further yield?
I do.
Would the GDOT board be the one that put the project on the list in the first place?
They would be.
Will the senator further yield?
I do.
And to put that project on the list would have to be by majority of vote as well, correct?
That's correct.
So, Senator, I'm wondering if lines 61 and 62, if the sole purpose for them, since it's only by majority vote, is simply to eviscerate or do away with the 5% cap that the legislature had previously authorized.
This is certainly done with an eye towards a single project that is under consideration by GDOT to be done in the Port of Savannah, and it absolutely is a workaround to the existing language.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. President, if there's no further questions, I'll yield the well.
Senator, you have no other questions.
Thank you.
All right. We have amendments that have been offered. We have Amendment 1. Mr. Secretary, would you please read Amendment 1?
Senator Tillery of the 19th and others offer the following amendment, Amendment 1, to amend House Bill 52 by amending line 62 to read as follows. Authorized to waive this requirement by majority vote if 1, a separate state appropriation is made by name specifically for such project, or 2, 50% of such project is funded by the Georgia Ports Authority. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. We also have Amendment 1A. Would you please read Amendment 1A?
Senator Tillery of the 19th offers the following amendment, 1A, to amend Amendment 1 to House Bill 52 by amending 3 of the provisions of paragraphs 1 and 2 above shall only become effective on and after January 1st, 2025. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Does the senator from the 19th wish to speak to the amendments? Chair recognizes the senator from the 19th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members of the Senate. I, again, appreciate the senator from the 27th for the bill and appreciate his commentary and answering the questions that we had previously. What Amendment 1 does is that you heard the author speak to Section 3, lines 60 through 62 appear to take off or eviscerate a 5% cap that previously appeared in code. Amendment 1 allows for that evisceration of the 5% cap under 2 provisions. One would be if we specifically appropriate state funds for such a project,
or 2 would be if 50% of the project was paid for by the Georgia Ports Authority. Our move there is this: we have a capital budget every year. Many of you submit requests, and then you come to me and ask, hey, what's happening with my project? Why aren't things moving up, moving down? I heard it was in 2024, now it's in 2028. So we're becoming more and more protective of that capital projects fund, just to make sure that we can honor the commitments we've made to you, or the questions that I've had to answer for you in the budget process. In the discussion, though, with the department, they did bring up that the specific project in Savannah, and did say that it potentially could only be done by a certain number of contractors anyway. And in fairness to the department and wanting to move that project as quickly as possible, I offered Amendment 1A, which would add Section 3 below Sections 1 and 2 that already exist. So what it says again is, the DOT board will be authorized to waive the requirements of the 5% cap if a separate state appropriation was made, or if 50% of the project was funded by the Georgia Ports Authority, starting in January 1, 2025. Those provisions wouldn't be active until 2025. Again, to give the Ports Authority, or give the DOT enough time to not surprise anybody with those amendments. So, Mr. President, if there are no questions, I'll yield the well, and thank you for the time to explain.
Senator, are you ready for questions?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The chair recognizes the senator from the 17th for a question.
Senator Yield.
Seatmate.
Yes, sir.
Senator, what's your district number?
It's 19.
Do you further yield?
Yes, sir.
Is there a reason you don't put that when you sign your name? Does your name just speak for itself?
This week it normally does.
That's good. Do you further yield?
Yes, sir.
A serious question. Your First Amendment has all these signatures on it. Then you file 1A with just your name on. Is there a reason you couldn't get anybody to sign the Second Amendment?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. If you notice, the amendment sheet would have allowed me to write number 3 and just put it on there. But I went to each of you and talked to you individually about Amendment 1, and I did not think it was fair to surprise you by adding 3 after your signature was there. That would have been a heartless, cruel, dirty, duplicitous thing to do. So I went on my own with 1A because I didn't want you to sign something that later on changed. Sometimes that happens in this building, particularly as we get later on in the dates of the year, and I'm not going to be a part of that process. Mr. President, if there are no further questions, I'll yield the well.
You have another question. Okay. The chair recognizes the senator from the 27th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think I leapfrogged the Rules Chairman, which is, I guess, a high honor, so thank you. Senator Yield?
Yes, sir.
I just want to clarify, I referenced when you asked me the question that really this department request was relative to the bridge in Savannah. Does your Amendment 1A allow for that project to continue as planned, but basically put this in effect, your 1 and 2 in effect for future projects?
If the project for Savannah was to go into effect before January 1, 2025, yes, sir. My goal is not to slow down anything the DOT is already doing, but it is to be extremely mindful as we protect the Capital Projects Fund, because all of the senators in this room and our colleagues across the hall have district projects they've requested for years. And if we're going to do things that change that capital project list, we need to be cognizant of it and pay for it up front.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 28th, the Distinguished Rules Chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator, you yield?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So we've established here the 19th district, and so does the 19th district have any port authorities in it?
No, the inland port is just to the west of us. The port itself is to the east of us, but the big project that they're talking about doing is not in the 19th district.
Gotcha. Do you further yield?
Yes, sir.
Have you had any conversations with the port authority on this?
No, sir. I've not had any conversations, which again is why you have Amendment 1A, that if that project is to be accelerated, they have till 2025 to do it. And you also have Provision 1 of Amendment 1, which says, hey, if we want to fund this thing, that's great. Let's just be honest about it up front with it. Fund it up front and not require other projects to fall further down the list.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President, if there are no further questions, I yield the well, and thank you again for your time this morning.
Thank you, Senator. You have no further questions. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? The chair hears none. Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none, and the previous question is ordered. The question is on the adoption of amendment number 1. 1A, excuse me. Question is on the adoption of amendment number 1A by the senator from the 19th. Is there objection to the adoption of 1A? Hearing none, 1A is adopted. Is there an objection to the adoption of Amendment 1? Chair hears none, and Amendment 1 is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. The question is on the passage of the bill as amended. All those in favor of the bill will vote yea. Those opposed, nay, and the secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 53, the nays are 1. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Moving on to Senate Bill 90. Mr. Secretary, please read the bill. Read the caption.
Senate Bill 90 by Senator Dixon of the 45th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 10 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated, relating to selling and other trade practices so as to provide for commercial financing disclosures, to require certain persons to provide commercial financing transactions to make certain disclosures. The Senate Committee on Banking and Financial Institutions recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Summers of the 13th District Chairman.
I recognize, I'm sorry.
The Senate Committee on Banking and Financial Institutions offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 90, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 10 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated, relating to selling and other trade practices so as to provide for commercial financing disclosures, to require certain persons who provide commercial financing transactions to make certain disclosures. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Thank you. The chair recognizes the senator from the 45th to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I rise today to bring Senate Bill 90 before you. It proactively puts regulations in place on revenue-based financing companies. Revenue-based financing is a current form of finance that many small to medium-sized businesses use when a traditional bank loan is not the best option. These are contract agreements when a business needs a quick infusion of capital. They can get access to funds quickly for an exchange for a determined amount of future revenue. This bill standardizes and also regulates the disclosures of the total cost of capital and puts basic guardrails on brokers to help facilitate these commercial financing transactions. Some of the disclosures would be total amounts funds provided, total amount of funds dispersed, total payments, total dollar amount of the cost of financing, the number of payments, and any prepayment penalties or anything of that nature. With that, Mr. President, would be happy to answer any questions. If there are none, I will yield the well.
Senator, you have no questions.
Thank you.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? The chair hears none. Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none, and the previous question is ordered. The question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? Hearing none, the committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none, and the report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. The question is now on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor of the bill will vote yea. Those nay. Opposed, vote nay. And Mr. Secretary, please unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 52, the nays are 1, and this bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Moving on down the rules calendar, SB 120. Mr. Secretary, please read the caption.
Senate Bill 120 by Senator Eccles of the 49th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 41.8 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to safe operations of motor carriers, commercial motor vehicles, and drivers and safe transportation of hazardous materials so as to update the reference date to federal regulations regarding the safe operation of motor carriers and commercial motor vehicles. The Senate Committee on Public Safety recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Albers of the 56th District Chairman. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Thank you. The chair recognizes the senator from the 49th to speak to the bill.
Mr. President, thank you. Members, I'm here to present my first bill, and this bill is a housekeeping, yes, it is a housekeeping bill that allows the Department of Public Safety to implement the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration standards. This bill simply changes an old bill from 2022 to 2023. And Mr. President, I'm happy to answer questions, and if none, I'll yield.
Well, Senator, you have lit this board up like a Christmas tree.
I could hear the buttons.
I'm not sure what this bill does, but we're going to take some time and find out. The chair recognizes the senator from the 56th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the senator yield?
I do.
For a series of questions?
Certainly.
Senator, is this a housekeeping or a house cleaning bill?
It's a keeping bill.
It is a keeping bill.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we've got several former House members here in this body. Is this something you're trying to keep from those members?
Absolutely not, sir.
Okay. Senator, this says this is from the Department of Public Safety. Can you tell me who leads the Department of Public Safety?
I would say that you do, sir.
Oh. It's a good answer, but not what I was looking for. That would be Colonel Wright, head of the Georgia Department of Public Safety and State Patrol. Now, did you talk to him about this bill, knowing it obviously impacts his department?
I have not heard from him, sir.
Do you know who he reports to up the chain here?
I would assume you, sir.
No, I appreciate that, though. That would be the governor. So did you speak to the governor about this bill to make sure he was on board?
I have not spoken with the governor about this bill.
Very concerning. Now, you just won an election back in November, is that correct?
This is correct.
Now, you probably went all over your district. You met with constituents. You probably knocked on doors. And was this the number one issue you were trying to fix when you were on the campaign trail?
Public safety is always a number one issue for me.
That's a great answer, Senator. Well done.
Well played, Senator, but we've got more questions. Chair recognizes the senator from the 29th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the senator yield?
I do.
Senator, did you have an opportunity to read this legislation?
I did.
Do you further yield?
I do.
Do you feel that you're an expert on this particular subject?
I am no expert, sir.
Does the senator continue to yield?
I do.
Do you feel you have some advanced knowledge about this subject matter?
I do know a little bit about this subject matter.
Senator, if you look at line 2, it says operations of motor carriers and commercial motor vehicles and drivers. Is that not true?
That's correct.
Do you further yield for one more question?
I do.
Senator, have you ever been eastbound and down, loaded up in trucking, doing what they said can't be done?
I don't know how to answer that one, sir.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 28th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator, do you yield?
I do. Reluctantly.
Senator, it's my understanding you used to be a county commissioner before you were elected. Is that not true?
That is true.
So you're for local control. Is that
I am
not
for
true?
local control.
So Chairman Higgins in your district gave me a call, and he had some real issues with this bill. So how do you deal with that, and how do you navigate through that in local control with this heavy-handed bill that we're delivering from the state?
Unfortunately, I have not heard from Chairman Higgins on this issue.
Ooh, so you're not checking in with your constituents?
Apparently not.
Nor the commissioner of which the bill is for. Nor the governor. What say you?
I have nothing to say, sir.
I got nothing else.
Mr. President, I yield the well.
The chair. Well done, Senator, well done. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Senator from the 31st, do you wish to speak?
Mr. President,
Yes.
parliamentary inquiry.
Pardon?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that I assume in Hall County the politicians are not the most popular constituency, but it's probably the poultry farmers?
I think it sounds like the senator knows something. I'm not sure what.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right. So, does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? The chair hears none. Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none, and the previous question is ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. The question is on the passage of the bill. All those in favor will vote yea. Those against will vote nay. And Mr. Secretary, please unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 54, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Congratulations, Senator. Well done. Very well done. All right, moving on. The chair recognizes the senator from the 32nd.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for unanimous consent that Senate Bill 22 be taken from the table.
The chair has asked, the senator has asked for unanimous consent that Senate Bill 22 be taken from the table. Is there objection? Chair hears none. What? I'm sorry, forgive me. Let's read the caption.
Senate Bill 22 by Senator Kirkpatrick of the 32nd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 23 of Title II of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to hemp farming so as to amend a definition, to amend Chapter 12 of Title 16 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated. That complete. Senate Committee on Agriculture and Consumer Affairs recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Goodman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Thank you. The senator from the 22nd has asked for unanimous consent that SB 22 be taken from the table. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senate Bill 22 is removed from the table. The chair recognizes the senator from the 28th.
Mr. President, I move that Senate Bill 22 be committed to the Committee on Rules.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from the 28th has moved that Senate Bill 22 be committed to the Committee on Rules. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senate Bill 22 is committed to the Committee on Rules. All right. Chair recognizes the Majority Leader for a motion.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate stand adjourned until 10 a.m. on Thursday, February 23rd.
The Majority Leader has moved that we stand adjourned. Is there objection? Well, we'll read the announcements.
The Rules Committee meeting will happen upon adjournment in 450 of the Capitol. The Public Safety Committee meeting will happen at 1 p.m. in 450 of the Capitol. The Transportation Committee meeting will happen at 1 p.m. in Mezzanine 1 of the Capitol. The DOT Board election for District 10 will happen at 1:30 p.m. in the Senate Chamber. The Insurance and Labor Committee meeting will happen at 2 p.m. in Mezzanine 1 of the Capitol. The Higher Education Committee meeting will happen at 2 p.m. in 307 CLOB. The DOT Board election for District 13 will happen at 2:30 p.m. in the Senate Chamber. The Health and Human Services Committee meeting will happen at 3 p.m. in 450 of the Capitol. The Government Oversight Committee meeting will happen at 3 p.m. in 307 CLOB. The DOT Board election for District 14 will happen at 3:30 p.m. in the Senate Chamber. The Finance Committee meeting will happen at 4 p.m. in Mezzanine 1 of the Capitol. And the SLOGO Committee meeting will happen at 4 p.m. in 450 of the Capitol. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. The chair recognizes the senator from the 9th for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. President. Quick announcement. The Georgia Legislative Black Caucus will have our annual Heritage Dinner tomorrow at the International Convention Center in College Park. Remember, we are a nonpartisan caucus, so we welcome all who would like to join us tomorrow. Members, you already have a ticket. If you would like to join, we are still selling tickets until close of business today. Come see myself, Senator Islam, or Senator Mallow. Thank you. We would love to have y'all tomorrow. We have a great lineup of honorees and guests. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the will.
Thank you. The senator has yielded the will. The chair recognizes the senator from the 32nd for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to let the members of the Japan Caucus know that there is a luncheon happening between 12 and 1 in room 307. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Now we're back to the motion made by the Majority Leader. Oh, excuse me. My apologies. One more I missed. Senator from the 39th. My apologies, Senator.
Thank you. Just an announcement. Tomorrow is CPR Awareness Day here at the Capitol. We will be having people in 230 CAP doing CPR training and also folks to show us how to stop the bleed. You have flyers on your desk in your offices about this as well.
Great. Thank you, Senator. Senator from the 43rd is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm right here.
Yeah.
So tomorrow is Lupus Day at the Capitol, so if you can find your purple cape, if you can't find it, wear something purple to celebrate Lupus Day.
Thank you, Senator. Seeing no other announcements, the Majority Leader has moved that we will stand adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow, Thursday, February 23rd. All those in favor will say yea. All opposed? Oh, that's kind of close. I think the ayes clearly have it, though. We'll stand adjourned.